Welcome to the Ask a Matchmaker podcast. I'm Maria Avgitidis, better known as Matchmaker Maria. My guest is the host of the Seeing Other People podcast, Ilana Dunn. Ilana, welcome to Ask a Matchmaker Hotline Edition.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for so long.
I know, and we've had to reschedule twice, but I'm really happy you're here.
I'm happy I'm here. We made it. We did it.
We did it. We did it because the first was your reschedule, and then the second time was my reschedule. And it was just really, it was great. But we're here. We did it.
Happens.
Like you said,
just like a date. Sometimes you have to reschedule once or twice, but if both people want it to happen,
that's
it will
right.
happen.
That's that. You know what? That's it. That's what it is.
We're done here.
So, Ilana, let me tell you about today. Someone sent me a photo. It's an oldie but a goodie. I'm sure you've seen it before. Okay, so today I got a list from someone that said, this is the dating advice from the 1950s to help you find a husband. The mid 1900s.
I'm going to hate every single thing on here.
I coach teenagers in Greek theater, and one of them asked me if I was born in the late 1900s. So they're no longer alive. Had to murder them. All right. You ready?
Let's do it.
I got a list. I don't even know if it's the same list. I don't think it looks like she sent me two screenshots. One is 1 through 12 in a red font. The other one is 14 to 25 in a black font. So I'm pretty sure this is two different articles published in the 1950s. Okay. So where to find a man? Here we go. Get a dog and walk it. You know what? This is not actually bad advice.
I like that one. I offer Barkley up to people all the time because he is such a conversation starter, social lubricant. I actually like that one. I don't know if I'm going to like the rest, but I like that one.
I told a client once that next time she goes to the dog park, I'm going to, or Starbucks or the supermarket, I'm going to need her not to wear her AirPods. And she really got upset by the suggestion. But you know what? The first day, I swear to God, okay, the first day she did it, right? She literally 15 minutes after we hang up, she heads over to the dog park, no AirPods, wearing a blue jersey dress. And the guy that she's been eyeing for weeks just came up to her and was like, "Hey, my name's Jason," or whatever his name was. And they went on a date the next day.
It makes such a difference if you have your headphones on, if you're looking at your phone versus if you're not. And this is actually advice I gave to somebody today who asked about meeting people in real life. It's step one is you have to show up somewhere. Step two is you have to put your damn phone away.
Look approachable. Yeah. All right. Number 2. Okay. This is good. Have your car break down at strategic places.
Oh my God.
Because that many women were driving around the 1950s, first off.
Yeah. Right.
This is a time before women were allowed to get credit cards on their own.
Yeah. That's funny.
Okay. Number 3, attend night school, take courses men like.
I didn't hate it until there was that little caveat about that men like, but it's not a bad idea. It's similar to, join a kickball league or go to a slam poetry night, whatever, to put yourself out there in the position to meet other people. So I don't entirely hate it.
This is not going to be on the list, but if I were to make 3B, I would say join a Dungeons and Dragons league at night, because let me tell you, those nerds, they make excellent lovers. Okay. Join a hiking club. This is pretty risque in 2023, as we've learned. Okay, here we go. Ready? This is amazing. This is, again, 1958. Look in the census reports for places with the most single men. Nevada has 125 men for every 100 females.
It's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah. I would tell, I think women sometimes ask me where can I meet men? And sometimes I do think about that. I go, San Jose, St. Louis, Denver, and all my listeners in those cities right now are throwing up, but it's true. There are more men there than women. Seattle. And what's funny is anytime you go to a city where there are more men than women, the men are always really good looking because they have to compete.
Yeah, that is true. I'm dying to know, you posted something on your story the other day about someone who was cheating, I think. And everybody wanted to guess where that person was. And you're like, I'm not going to give up the name of the place. It's been on my mind.
Do you have a guess though? I want to see it. Let me hear your guess. You get 2 guesses. I'm not going to tell you.
I truly wouldn't know. Like I would not know is the thing.
So for those who don't know, you need to head on over to my Instagram highlights and find January 9th tea. And in fact, today in a WhatsApp chat, someone said, how's the January 9th girl doing? Like that's become like a title. And I can't say the city. I did ask 2 people from that city, like, am I wrong here? Am I disillusioned? And the both of them were like, yeah, you can't share that city. So it's a small city. It's not New York. It's not DC. It's a small city. And how many January 9th birthdays can there possibly be? I mean,
yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, okay, here we go. We got another one. Okay. This is a really good one. I mean, I don't know if I don't agree with it, but it's funny. Read the obituaries to find eligible widowers.
Oh my God. This is wild. What concerns me the most about this one, if I really think into it for a second, is if you're just now reading the obituaries, that person they have a long way to go in their mourning and grieving and healing process.
Well, let me ask you a question. You're on TikTok. Have you landed on Brooke's widow's wife's TikTok yet?
No.
What? Are you serious? This has consumed my FYP.
Oh,
so there's this woman
my
named,
phone's listening. It's going to be the first thing on my FYP.
Yeah,
after
right.
This, but...
I think, I don't remember if it's her or if it's the woman, but apparently, okay. So this one woman, she posted on TikTok a video of this other woman who was pregnant. She goes, that's my baby and that cute tummy, but that's not me. And then I guess, so like that woman, she passed away in childbirth, which is completely tragic, obviously. Right. But then this woman goes on, like she shows a photo of her holding the baby, and the baby looks like 4 months old. And then they got married like very quickly after. And then they've had 2 more kids, but she's using a woman's tragic death as clout. I don't know what the agenda is here. Right. But it's all over, like, just, like I would murder my husband. I would haunt him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
If, like, so the newspaper thing, I mean, look, there's 2 ways about this, because it just kind of reminds me of, I hung out with a friend yesterday, and she's older, and she said that if I died, my husband would be married in 6 months because he's codependent. He can't be alone. And I understand that that's happened to a few members in my family that are older. Like, my great uncle, his wife, died on a Monday. He was remarried by the end of the month.
Oh my God.
Because he didn't know how to boil an egg, I'm not saying that's right. I understand why this is advice in the 50s. It happens. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Just, don't do it. I don't know.
There are other ways.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to skip a few. Some of these people already do sit on a park bench and feed the pigeons. I mean, okay. All right. Are you ready for a good one? Get a job in a medical, dental, or law school. So get a job in a medical school, law school, dental. That's not bad advice.
It's not. But there is that issue you run into where if somebody's a student, they might be focused on school and their career, and they might not be looking to date, but they might have friends who are.
See, okay. Number 14 is, this is what I did. Ask your friends' husbands who the eligible men are in their offices. That's literally, I was like, I need you to, I need you to invite me next time you're out with your friends.
I'm surprised at how practical this list is.
Yeah, it's not bad. All right. Get lost at football games. Yeah. I don't know how that helps anyone right now. Everyone's on their phone.
That's true.
Like your soulmate could be passing away while you thumb away another soulmate online as you wait in line at like the MetLife Stadium. But I mean, that's a real football stadium.
But MetLife does suck the battery out of phones. So if you're in like the 3rd quarter, you never know. You might have a dead phone. They might have a dead phone. You're both trying to get a drink. The line is long. Anything can happen.
Get a job demonstrating fishing tackle in a sporting goods store.
What? I don't think I would get that job because I don't know what that means.
Okay. Number 23, go to all reunions of your high school or college class. There may be widowers there. That's the full statement.
God. Oh my God. Not to meet anyone else, just because there may be widowers there.
Yeah. Don't reconnect with like Becky, who like you play field hockey with.
Oh my God. That's really
John's
funny.
wife died. Go talk to him.
Yeah. He needs
Like,
someone, and so do you.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to associate with more attractive girls. They may have more leftovers.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay. Let's see. Let's do one last one. Get a government job overseas. Wait. That's not the last one. The last one's going to be volunteer for jury duty. That's my favorite one. Have you ever done jury duty?
You know, I haven't, and I'm offended because I feel like I would weirdly
You
find
should
it
go volunteer for
entertaining.
jury duty.
It's my new calling.
Okay, for real. You've never done jury duty?
No, I've never.
Oh my God, you're
done
missing
it.
out. You got to do it. I don't understand
Right?
people who want to excuse themselves. I'm like obsessed with jury. I got jury duty in 2012 on Valentine's Day of 2012. Like, how dare you? Like, that's like the busiest week of my life when it comes to press. Like, I'm already booking my stuff for that week, and I know I'm going to need a vacation like the following week.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I got jury duty on February 14th of 2012. And I remember everyone kept saying, like, giving me excuses of like how to get out of it. And I came into the idea of like, I guess I need to get out of it. Like, I didn't appreciate what I was saying no to. And then I'm waiting in line and there's all these people just giving their reasons why. Like, I was like number 200. So I'm watching like 200 people in front of me, like tell their reasons to the judge, and the judge is like saying yes or no. And it was really funny because when you go to jury duty, and I did jury duty in Manhattan, that's like literally, it wasn't 20 people, it was like 100 people. It's like, if you picked 100 random people in Manhattan, what would they look like? And New York City, I never appreciated how diverse New York City was until I was in jury duty. And I was like, wow, we are all so random.
Yeah.
And then I got picked and I thought my answer, again, I came in thinking like, I'm not going to get picked. So someone, like one of my friends said, like, you should tell them that you're a matchmaker, which makes you very judgmental by nature. And I was like, that's a great idea. Again, thinking I want to get out of jury duty because everyone's talked about getting out of jury duty. So it comes to me and they're like the attorney, I guess, or the what's it called? Yeah, the prosecutor. He was like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a matchmaker. And he's like, oh, so do you judge people for a living? And I go, yes, I do. Thinking again, like, let me get out. And
the judge is like, great,
accepted. And I became four-woman. I'm like, how does this happen? Like, what?
Oh my God.
And it ended up being a criminal case for 2 weeks. And I learned so much about our legal system. It's crazy. I learned what it's like to be with 11 other people who come like just, random people. And I'll tell you something. I was single then. There was one hot guy in my jury pool. And I remember every corner of his face. And I was,
so maybe this is what people need to be doing.
Volunteer. Can you volunteer for jury duty?
I don't know.
Could you, could you imagine like you go to jury duty and like you have to do like some forensic accounting case? Like, ugh.
I'm Googling it. Can you volunteer? Yeah, you can volunteer. You go
to the most boring case ever.
If you're in New York, nyjuror.gov, click volunteer and fill out the questionnaire.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Could you imagine?
Someone said you can't volunteer.
You can't volunteer?
Well, Google's wrong then.
Google is wrong. Well, what have you been doing? Thank you for playing this. I don't know if it was a game, but thanks for listening to these lists, these ways to meet men. Amazing.
I'm pleasantly surprised by the list, I will say.
This is good content for your Did You Know series on TikTok. Talk about that.
It is. I will. I've been trying to, I want to expand the Did You Know series to include actual facts.
So tell my listeners what your series is. Tell us a little bit more about you, your dating, like where's your dating background coming from? Give my followers a sense of you.
Yeah. So I worked at Hinge. I ran their social media for a little over 2 years. And I ended up in a role there because of how bad my dating life was. I felt like I was at rock bottom. I felt like I was so alone in what I was struggling with. And I saw this job and I was like, wow, if I could use the skills that I have to help even one person not end up feeling the way I'm feeling right now, not end up in such a horrible, heartbreaking situation, that would be all worth it. That is my new career goal.
Is this paragraph 2 in your cover letter? Is this what you
Pretty
wrote?
much, pretty much. So I ended up getting this job, and I was really running the Hinge social media for a while, and my face was very much on it. Like, everybody knew me as Ilana from Hinge. And for the first year that I was there, I kept things very surface level. I was just, kind of actionable advice that I got from the internet, from anyone else. And at one point I decided to kind of change my mind and actually open up, not necessarily about the dates I was going on and what was happening on them, but about what I was struggling with and the breakup I was going through and how isolated I felt and how difficult of a time I was having. And that was really this like light bulb moment where the DMs were flooded. My email was flooded with people like thanking me for showing this side of it, because, you open social media, you see happy couples everywhere and you just feel like, well, what's wrong with me that I can't have that? And so that really was so eye-opening for me. And I started just diving in headfirst into being vulnerable and authentic on social media. And I wanted to tell more of my stories and also create a place where other people could come and share their stories. So that's what I do with Seeing Other People. And I've been doing it for 2 years, and I have experts like yourself on the podcast. And I also have episodes every Thursday where my listeners come on anonymously to share what they've been through and how it's impacted them and what they've learned from it. So that's what I do.
When people call in on Thursday, are the stories like, oh, here's my breakup story, here's my ghost story? Or are they like happy stories? Like, here's how I met someone and I'm so happy.
Anything in between, it could be somebody telling a story of one of my favorite episodes. A woman came on to share her story of finding out that she got herpes and how it impacted her dating life, how she thought her dating life was over, and how she had to navigate telling the person who gave it to her and all of the emotions that she went through, and going to a herpes support group and thinking that it was going to impact her life in 100 different ways. And she is engaged now to the love of her life and realized that once she got over the initial like trauma of realizing like, oh my God, this thing happened, like it actually didn't impact her in the ways that she thought it would.
Right.
So it could be anything. Some people talk about getting ghosted and how it led them to meeting the love of their life. Or people, I had an episode today come out where this man shared that after 14 years of marriage, his wife realized that she was a lesbian, and he ended up meeting somebody shortly after who became the love of his life, but she was not okay with the friendship that he had with his now ex-wife. So there's such a wide variety of stories that people share.
So you just have like an open mic. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's one person an episode, and it's so beautiful and incredible. And I think all of these people who come on are so brave that they're willing to open up and share this, just in the hopes that it will help at least one person.
That's awesome. When did you start Seeing Other People podcast?
I started Seeing Other People the first week of January in 2021. So we just hit the 2-year mark, which is wild.
And you guys are doing so good. Like you're doing so good. I mean, I don't know why I made that a plural and masculine, and I apologize for that, but you're doing so good. And that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. It feels really, really incredible to know where I started and where I'm at now. And that in a way it's been 2 long years, but it's only been 2 years, and this still feels like just the beginning.
Absolutely. Okay. So are you ready to take on some questions on today's hotline episode?
Hell yeah.
So welcome to the Ask a Matchmaker hotline. How can we help you?
Hi. So I've been dating someone for about 2 months. Things are going well. He lives about an hour away from me, but we constantly see each other like 1 to 2 times a week. We talk on the phone in between. I've met most of his friends, some of mine. So, it's going well. We feel like pretty confident that he likes me. He's affectionate. But he's not a big texter, and he's not on his phone. He can't have his phone at work. So I don't necessarily expect to receive like text during the day. Some hear from him at all 9 or 10 PM on, days when we're not just kind of like inconsistent. He's also big on like roasting via text. It's hard to like understand context or like hear intonations. Sometimes it just comes off as like nagging a little bit. I have definitely an anxious attachment style. So if we go a day where we're just texting and we don't talk on the phone and I don't get that full context, I'll start to like panic and assume something's wrong when a lot of times there's like nothing wrong. There are times when I need friends to like calm me down a little bit. And so, overall, like I feel like things are going well. Like I definitely want to continue dating. Nothing's like worth ending things at this point, but I also acknowledge like for my own sanity, I can't necessarily keep getting into this like panic cycle. It does take a toll on me. So I guess my question would be like, what's the best way to talk to him about needing more reassurance, but like in a lighthearted way? Because I don't want to have some like heavy conversation that makes it into a bigger deal than it needs to be, but I also like want to get the point across that I need.
Ilana, do you have any? I have so many, but I'd love to hear your thoughts first.
Have you guys tried voice notes at all?
So he doesn't have an iPhone, so I don't even know if they can do that. He's like an Android. Like he's got like a brick.
Okay. I will say my brother has a brick as well, and they just send as little voice audio files, but he and I do that frequently, and it is helpful. I've been in this situation before, and I know exactly what you mean with that, like that pit of anxiety of like, oh, like I haven't heard from him. He hasn't texted me, or we've only texted a bit today and I haven't heard from him on the phone. And the way that can just become this overthinking spiral when literally nothing is wrong. I've been there. And there was one time where I finally was like, I like this guy and things seem really good when we're together. And I can't keep feeling like this way when we're not together between dates. And so I finally said to him, maybe it was after our like 5th date or so, I think I brought it up in like this might sound weird, but sometimes I feel like you hate me when we don't talk that much during the week. And I'm not sure if you're just not a big texter or if you actually don't really like me as much as I think you do, but it makes me feel really anxious. And I don't necessarily want to tell you, you have to text me all the time. But if we could figure out some form of having a little more communication between dates, I think it would feel a lot better for me. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were feeling that way. Like, yeah, I'm a terrible texter, especially during the work week. I'm never on my phone when I'm at work, but if it will make you feel better, I will try. And he put in so much effort and actually became an amazing texter. And it showed me more than the fact that he was texting me more. The bigger takeaway was, okay, I expressed my need to this person and they were able to show up for me and show me that they care enough to put in that effort.
Carly, yeah, I want to go back to your original question, which is like, how do I not make this conversation really heavy? And I feel like, I don't know if those were the exact words, but that's maybe what I understood. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I think that's the words that you're using. I feel like they're I think it's coded language for how can I tell him my needs without coming off as needy? Is that accurate?
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Why do you think that communicating pretty reasonable communication standards is needy?
That is the question. Yeah. And I've been asking myself that a lot, right? Like I think I've definitely had some experiences where I've expressed or asked for things in previous relationships, and I've been met with people that have been more avoidant and have been not willing to kind of give me basic things. So I think this is definitely some like, trauma from previous relationships where I am afraid to like have those conversations. But I think my fear is like, I don't want to come off as like, I don't want it to seem negative or like for me to bring down the tone. Cause like when we spend time together, like he's really funny. It's really lighthearted. So then like, it almost feels like it's like dampening things to like, be like, okay, well, I actually want to have like a serious conversation,
Right. Okay. So I can understand what's happened in your past relationships. You self-identified as someone who's anxious. And what typically happens in those relationships and with an anxious, and I don't know, I'm assuming you identified your exes as avoidant, is that there's like this catch-22 relationship. And that's essentially where your trauma is probably coming from, right? So what happens in those catch-22 relationships is that on one end, you have the anxious person who needs validation, reasonable validation for most people, right? And they need the acknowledgement, and the other person's not giving it. So you might text them first, or you might compliment them first, or you might do things first in order to trigger the projected response you want from them. The avoidant person doesn't do that. But that confusion and that anxiety is very addictive, right? So I need you now to take a step back from that scenario that you've had in the past. And I want you to think about, what does it mean to be in a secure relationship? So let's just pretend for a second that you did not identify as anxious. You identified as secure. Do you think a secure person would feel like they're threatening the future of whatever this is for asking for some sort of communication throughout the day, if that person can, right? Like, somebody in the comments just said that they're dating someone who's in the SWAT team. I mean, that's a kind of career that might be hard, right? Or if you're dating a surgeon who does 12-hour surgeries, these people are not texting, right? So let me ask you a question. Does the person that you're dating, does he have a career where he can text throughout the day or call you, let's say at 5 p.m. after work?
He cannot text when he's at work. It's a like confidential, like he can't have his phone on him when he's working.
Okay. So now you're going to wear a rubber band. And if you are thinking about, like, does he like me between the times of 9 to 5 or whatever time he gets out, you're going to rubber band yourself, because that's not him. This is you. But now let's talk about how you're going to make it work at the end. Right. So I remember I had this one client, she's actually on my podcast a few months ago. She met a guy and he's not a texter. And he told her, I'm not a texter. And she told him, well, I am. So where's the middle ground here? And what they decided, what they compromised on, she said that to him, like, I'm a texter. I need to communicate and I feel like something is missing here that I need. And I'm telling you, like, here are my needs. So here's a compromise that we can do. Whatever happens, every evening, we're going to FaceTime. And that's what they started doing. And it got rid of that texting relationship need. And then it turned to like, wow, we're checking in every night with each other. And I'll just take you, like, let's just say it works out with this person or any person you got in the future. I just want you to know that there is a point in your relationship with anyone where you just stop texting altogether. Like if I showed you screenshots of me and my husband's text messaging, it's like, buy vitamins. Does Alexandra need a new diaper?
Yeah.
Like there's a point where it's like text, and it just collapses. And what you're asking for is so valid. I think a lot of people are going to relate what you're asking, but I think you just have to remind yourself that your needs are insanely reasonable, and just communicating that by saying, all you simply say is, I really miss you today. And I've noticed that I'm missing you most days. So is it possible for us to FaceTime every evening or right after work on days that we're not going to see each other? It would just make me feel so good to see your face and hear your voice. So when this episode comes out, you're going to like voice note that and memorize it, because that's essentially, that's all you have to say. Did I sound threatening to you? Do you want to break up with me?
No.
And that's exactly what they're going to think too.
Yeah. Thank you. No,
I mean, if you disagree, tell me.
No, I don't disagree. And it's, Android thing. I don't know if we can FaceTime, but we can talk on the phone.
Oh my God. FaceTime now has a link and you could just send them that, but you could just Zoom it, or you could Slack. There's like a million ways.
There's Instagram video chat.
Yeah.
There are ways. There's a way.
Yeah. Like don't you know what? Buy him a fucking iPhone. Tell him to get with the blue bubble crew here. How many months have you been dating?
About 2.
Has he been inside you?
Yes.
Oh, then come on. Like you can ask for a video date. Come on. Skype, download Skype. That still exists, believe it or not.
There are ways. I also want to add one thing about, this is a trick that I did when I would get really anxious between dates. When I would get home from a date, I would write down a note in my phone. This is how the date went. This is things that we laughed about. Here is how we left the date. He texted me right after, and I feel really good right now. And there is literally nothing for me to worry about. That way, 48 hours later, when I would start to spiral, I could actually reference back and say, no, Ilana, everything was great. Voice in my head, be quiet, shut up. You don't belong here because everything is great. And I'm not going to sit here and convince myself otherwise based on not getting a text back for a few hours. And I also would write down, every single time that I have panicked that I haven't heard from him. Guess what? Every time he ended up texting me. And like stick to those facts and remind yourself these are the facts, and anything else is just things that I am overthinking and making up in my head.
I mean, also like the biggest reminder is just remembering why you're incredible. That's the list I have in my back pocket. Like I remember I was single. That was the list I had. And I know it sounds narcissistic, but it's true. Like I wrote down, here are the 10 things that make me incredible. And if he didn't call after a certain amount of time, it's like, wow, it's your loss. Like, holy shit, you just missed out on the biggest opportunity of your life.
Yeah.
What a douchebag. What an idiot. I don't want to be with an idiot. That's an idiot. So I'm not worried. I think, look, just voice what you need and hopefully he'll step up. And if he doesn't, that says way more about him than it says about you.
Yep. You're right. Thank you.
You got this. All right. Let's take our next caller. Welcome to the Ask a Matchmaker hotline. How can we help you?
Hi, Maria. So I have been single for about 9 years, and I've pretty much done it all. I've taken app breaks. I've tried dating in real life. I had a dating coach. I've traveled alone. I have done tantric sex workshops. I've swam in the ocean. I've
add
tried
that into the 1950s list. Hello.
That's so true. That's so true. And I don't usually get past 3 dates until I kind of lose interest or I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I cut it off after 3 dates. And, how do I just not lose hope, I guess? Is it just like luck, timing, and fairy dust, or am I doing something wrong that I should be concentrating on?
Good question. I don't know you. Okay. But anytime someone tells me that I go on 3 dates and then I lose interest, I immediately think like, oh, I wonder why she's losing interest. Is she meeting people that she's just no longer curious after 3 dates? She gets everything that she needs and she moves on. Is there a heavy dose of FOMO, fear of missing out? Does this person feel like they've adapted to constantly being on the hunt because maybe they are used to being self-sufficient from, let's say, a traumatic childhood where they've had to always learn to just like, what's it called? Protect their own inner circle. So you just don't, the moment someone gets a little too close, it's like, well, okay, I think I've lost interest because I don't want to bring you in, because to bring you in would mean to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So do any of these things apply to you?
Well, I would say I did say I lose interest after 3 days, but sometimes it's a mutual thing. I would say it's like I don't usually get past 3 dates.
Okay.
But is there FOMO? I think it's just I want something. I tend to like the exciting, shiny men.
What's an exciting, shiny man?
Oh, an exciting, shiny man. Just someone with a lot of personality, that may or may not be a heavy drinker and a narcissist, but I mean, I recognize that
guy exists. What? Shiny personalities and not narcissists?
No, they are narcissists.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So hold on. Okay. So we're attracted to the shiny pennies. What makes them shiny?
Oh, they are, I just find them, well, I think, and I think I've listened to your podcast enough to know that like, I get that little like anxiety feeling in my gut and I'm like, oh, I like them. But I think it's just like anxiety because I know they're unavailable. So I'm very self-aware of all my bad dating habits.
What makes them shiny?
They're just exciting.
What makes them, you're just using other,
I know. I know.
I cannot believe this right now. This is like a thesaurus of answers. What makes them exciting?
They're unavailable.
Oh my God. That is a breakthrough. Holy smokes. So they're not exciting. They're not shiny. They're unavailable. Wow.
Right.
Do you realize you just answered your own question now? So it's like, why am I not going on fourth dates with people? I'm dating unavailable people. And you know what unavailable people are really good at? The first 3 dates, because they have learned to give good first date. They have learned to give good second date. I remember I dated this one guy. Apparently all of my friends dated him at the same time. And we didn't know, by the way. But what I remember the most about him is that, my God, his first date was amazing. And it's because he knew all the right stories to get you to a second date. And then he knew all the right stories on a second date to get you a third date. And then it's like, and then I remember by the 4th date, I was like, wow, you're actually dim. I don't think I could see you again, because the shiny penny had just no longer become shiny. But also this person was unavailable. They were interested in something else. So now to go back to your question, why aren't you going on 4th dates? I'm wondering now, why do you keep dating men that are unavailable? Like, it's not like, where are you finding these guys? I know they exist everywhere. And I would tell you that like 30% of men are unavailable emotionally. So what I'm wondering is, when I think about someone who's excited of shiny pennies, what they tend to like is the roller coaster of anxiety. They like the pull and push, the chase. They like that. And they confuse that for courtship. And that's not the case, because the person that you want to date, the guy that you want to go on a 4th date with, he's actually quite boring in the first 2 dates. Like, why? Because he's actively listening. He's not leaving you confused. He calls you when he says he's going to call. He orders you an Uber to take you home. Like, he's not, it's just boring. And I mean boring in like the most positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, going off of that, have you had any dates where maybe it doesn't even make it to a 3rd date, it's a first date or a second date, and you're like, this person's fine, but I don't feel that spark, that anxiety isn't there, so it must not be right? Have you had any of those situations?
Yes, I did date a guy last year for 3 months, and I was really proud of myself because I got past, 5 dates, and it just, I just did it in the end. It just wasn't something that I knew I wanted for the future. But I have gone on a lot of 1 or 2 dates, but I feel like I also know after the first date if I want to see them again. And it seems like most often than not, if I'm meeting them on the apps, no, I don't want to see them again.
Okay. All right,
what are you making that judgment call off of? Like, what is happening on the date that is making you say like, on to the next, on or after the first date?
I'm wondering if before you answer that, I'm literally wondering now if the guy that you're not going on a second date with, that's the guy.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Right. Go ahead. Tell us why you're not. What are your criteria for no second date?
For me, it's if I would rather be anywhere else than on the date. That's really my criteria.
Where are your dates?
Like at a bar. Like this one guy
kind of bar?
Like a saloon. Is that like a neighborhood bar?
Where the fuck do you live? A saloon?
Philadelphia.
Oh my God.
Like a bar, a spot.
A saloon where Ben Franklin went, next to the ice cream shoppy with Jughead.
Staring at the Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Look, I think that the criteria to a second, okay, I'm going to go back. If you've listened to this podcast, you know exactly what I'm about to say, which is the purpose of a first date's to go on what?
A second date.
Yes. Good. 5 stars, gold star rather. Okay. So purpose of first date's to go on a second date. And the criteria to decide if you should go on a second date is, did I enjoy myself? Am I still curious about them?
Mm-hmm.
You mean to tell me that you've been on several first dates where you just were no longer curious about them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you. Valid. That's fine.
Yeah. I ask a ton of questions. I interview. I mean, I don't need it.
You should be asking questions on a first date. Oh my God. Gotta go
But
back
men
to my
don't ask
podcast.
questions.
I need you to listen to the episode. Oh my God. I'm gonna shout out another Hinge girly. You know, listen to my episode with
Logan
Yuri, where we talk about you cannot ask questions on a first date. It has to be full conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's practice.
Okay.
Let's pretend we're on a speed date right now. Cause you know what? That's like the most popular question I've been getting lately. I guess there's like a lot of speed dating events in New York this past week. They're like, I'm going to a speed dating event. What questions should I ask? And I'm like, literally none.
Yeah.
So let's practice.
Okay.
So I'm telling you now, you cannot ask me a question.
Okay.
Here's the hint. Okay. When you're conversating, so you know what I want you to do with Ilana. I'm going to have you two practice.
Okay.
The name of the game here is to share a passion of yours that is value driven. Okay. So like, I'll give you a really good one. Okay. I'll give you like a prompt. You say, by the way, you should be able to make fun of yourself when you're going on an online date or a speed date. Like, it's okay. It's completely ridiculous. Like for the last, 65,000 years, humankind did not rely on you swiping away your soulmate. Okay. So it's okay to be funny. So you can say stuff like, let's say you can get off by saying, you know what? I don't want to give any more thing. Go.
Oh, so I'm talking about something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. So Ilana, thanks for,
Ilana, it's so
great
nice
to meet you.
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
You too.
You look great tonight.
Oh, I love that.
I'm currently embroidering some canvas, and I'm really excited about this art project I want to do, decorating my walls with all these embroidery faces and practicing my color theory.
That is so cool. How did you get into that?
Well, I just, had a global pandemic and found out that I really like to embroider just like every other 30 something. And it's been fun.
I love that. For me, during the pandemic, I got really into adult coloring books, specifically curse word coloring books. And they ended up being such a big like stress reliever and creative outlet for me. But more than that, I learned that taking time away from my phone is the best thing that I can do for myself. So now I try and color like every day, even if it's for 10 minutes, just to not be on my phone for those 10 minutes.
Yes. And now I want to ask a question to follow up with that.
Uh-huh.
Can I? Or no?
Yeah, no, of course. But do you see how no one's asked a question so far? And like, I've just learned a lot about both of you. So now you can ask follow-up questions because that's what a conversation is.
Okay. So my question would be, what are the curse words? Are they people talking or just really large letters of curse words?
Really large letters of curse words with like fuck in the middle, like giant, and then just designs around it.
So now if I liked Ilana, you know what I would do next? I would say, Ilana, especially if this was on a first date, I would say, not a first date, like let's say we were at a speed dating event, or if we were out at an event, like a networking event, I would say, now this is my move. Okay. I would say, can you show me on your phone one of these images? And then you take they give you your phone, right? And they're showing you. And then it's like, okay, while I have your phone, I'm going to give you my number. You're going to call me tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the move.
You can even say, we'll get together. Well, I'll bring a bottle of wine over if you have a second coloring book, and we'll color the night away.
Yeah.
What if they are in a relationship? Because it's a networking event.
You're right. I would take their phone and be like, wow, that's really cool. Listen, I want to give you my number, but are you available? Does someone think they're in a relationship with you?
I love how you phrase that question. It's my favorite thing.
Oh yeah. And then if they say yes, I'm in a relationship, she is so lucky. Next time you hang out with your friends, you have to invite me. I believe birds of a feather flock together. Like, hell fucking yeah, I would totally network my ass into someone else's social life. Like, otherwise, what's the point? Seriously. So I would straight up I would be like, that is amazing. Next time you hang out with your friends, you have to invite me because I need to meet all the single guys if they're friends with you. That's it. You just gave them a compliment. And And it's just like, are you going to take, like, can you take down my email? That way, email is like less innocuous than like a phone number if someone's in a relationship. Like, take down my email. Next time you go to a social event, I really love it if you'd invite me. I'm really trying to meet someone special. And if they say they're not in a relationship, be like, okay, well, I'm giving you my number. My name is, then you just kind of, that's what I would do. But you notice, like, you just practice, right? And you did it like on the fly. Now imagine if I asked you for the next week, every time you talk to your girlfriends, think about what you're saying. And every time you hear something passionate come out, write it down, put it in your notepad. So that next time you're at an event, you have like an arsenal of like 5 things you could choose from when it comes to like talking about your passions. Because I will tell you now, as a professional matchmaker, the number one thing every single man has ever asked me for the last 15 years is she has to be someone who has a passion in her life. I don't care if it's her job or some volunteer thing, but she has something that she can talk about and get excited about because that's how men, like, I know I'm talking really heteronormatively, but I think most people, not just straight men, most people get really attracted to people when they see them talk about something that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
The difference is that women do this with other women all the time.
Right. And one easy way to get into those conversations, if you are at a speed dating event or a networking event or on a first date with someone from an app, if they just ask you like, how was your week or what'd you do this weekend? You can jump right in like, oh, I was actually like up so late last night because I was so focused on like finishing this one part of this embroidery thing that I'm working on. And you can just weave it right in there. Even if that didn't happen last night, it's an easy way for you to bring it into a real conversation about something that matters to you.
Oh, that's great.
My best friend is on,
my best friend is on this call, so she will remind me of all of this information.
Good. And also, of course, this will be on the podcast on Tuesday.
True.
Thanks for calling in. Okay.
Thank you. Welcome
to the Ask a Matchmaker hotline. How can we help you?
Since I started listening for the past 2 years, I started dating someone 4-ish months ago. And I really, really like him. And I can see myself even marrying him. And
that's awesome.
I see it happening that it could be very serious. The thing is, before this relationship, I was in kind of a more toxic, emotionally abusive relationship that at the time I didn't really realize was so bad. But this guy is apples to lamps. He's totally different. He's magnificent. He's so just wonderful in every which way. And there's no comparison to the other person that I had dated. So I want to ask a multi-part question, which includes how do I know if I'm rushing into it in my brain or if it actually is becoming more serious in actuality with him? And how do I start having the more serious conversations about the future and marriage and future goals? And part 3 or C of that question is how much should I or should not bring up about that past kind of toxic and problematic relationship?
Let's start with the last question. How much do you want to share about your past trauma, or do you not want to share?
So I do, and I have a little bit. I've kind of put little kernels of information out there because some of it is just relevant to my recent history in the past few years. And there is a teeny bit of social overlap between some of my friends and the person I used to date. But I honestly, since it was so traumatic, I don't remember even all of it. So it's not totally 100% needing to share it all.
Okay, then you're done. I know that's very quick, but it's I think you'll look, Ilana, maybe you have a personal example, but I have a personal example. I had a really awful relationship in my early 20s. And that carried on to a lot of relationships after that where I never talked about it. And because I was just we didn't date long enough for me to share that. I do remember when I met my now husband, when I met him, I started sharing little morsels, things that he needs to know, because I was trying to set the expectation of this is unacceptable behavior that I went through. And I just want to make sure that you understand that this is unacceptable. And that was it. Any other trauma that I, didn't work on already, he would eventually learn as, you conversate. Anytime you are with someone for a long time, you're going to naturally share. So my question to you is of all the things that you haven't shared with him, do you think it's in benefit for for him to know? Or do you feel like you need to tell him every single thing that's happened in the past?
I like actually what you just said about sharing the little morsels that are actually relevant to your future and relevant to the relationship as it goes on with the person that I'm dating now. And I kind of feel like I have done that so far. I shared maybe in the second month of us dating a story about a really bad experience on Valentine's Day when I gave the ex a stuffed animal. He said he doesn't like stuffed animals and threw it away. And so I just let him know that if he doesn't like a gift, he can just let me know, because I was really nervous to get him a birthday present. But
Oh my God,
totally
that is
different.
that's awful.
My heart
That
just
is
broke a little.
I know that's exactly what I was saying. That is so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and what's even more heartbreaking about it is I really was just not aware of how problematic of a situation it was. But on the flip side, the person I'm dating now is so wonderful, so communicative, really just listens, asks questions. And we listened to an episode of your podcast together.
Which one?
I don't remember. It was just a snippet of one, like a month ago when we were driving together. But so yeah, he's receptive to that too. And so it's really great. And so that was able to help me with the anxiety of gift giving.
So your first two questions were about like, how do I know if this is my guy forever? And then like, how do I communicate? Like, I want to start looking at serious. And, you know, it's actually similar to the previous callers about like conversating over questions. So I believe, and Ilana, I'd love for you to chime in after this, but I believe that we tend to know, in hindsight, we tend to know around the 4 to 6 month mark. Like in hindsight, let's say you end up with this guy 2 years from now, you're going to say, it was around this time when I was like, yeah, this is the guy. It's hard to tell right now because you're in the thick of it. But now to determine like, how do I talk about it? You actually need to start talking. Like I would advise you now that you need to start talking more about what you expect in your future to see if it aligns with him. And I'll give you an example. And I'm not asking questions. I'm talking about it. So for instance, I think one of the biggest reasons that people divorce is financial incompatibility or like lifestyle incompatibility. So you need to start communicating your expectations. For instance, what are your 5-year goals? What are your 10-year goals? And I'm not asking you to ask them that question as you're on a drive. Instead of listening to my awesome podcast, start saying, I was thinking about my 10-year goals, and it includes, I suppose being at this place at my job, like what position. I think I would be interested in maybe also checking out like maybe an MBA certificate. I hope I would get married. I want to be married. I want to already have children, possibly 2. Like you're just talking to yourself and they're next to you listening. Another one of those things that you can conversate about is like when you have children, who's paying for that education? Or if you have a close relationship with your parent, what happens when they get older? Like these are financial conversations, but they look like lifestyle conversations because that's what financial compatibility is. It's lifestyle compatibility. Ilana, what would you say?
Yeah, I will say that when I've been with my boyfriend for about 2 years now, and when we first started having the more serious conversations, the way we did it was by talking about our childhoods and things that we would want to do the same as parents, or things that we might want to look a little different, or, memories we have from growing up that we hope we can replicate for our kids, or, we both grew up a certain way and our conversations were about, well, if we can't afford that, what are we willing to compromise on? And so we were able to have these conversations about the future by talking about our past and by teaching each other about the way we grew up. And it felt really organic. It felt like a really wonderful way to connect and to A, learn more about each other, but B, also kind of figure out how we would do this thing together.
And it's okay to like work through those questions out loud in front of them. Like, exactly what Ilana said. I would also advise you to like think about like, what are things you want to unlearn from your parents? Like as much of a great relationship you might have with your parents, and I don't know you, okay? So you might have a shitty relationship with your parents. I have no idea. But let's say you have a great relationship with your parents. There's still things in your upbringing that you want to unlearn. So next time you're talking about your child, you could say like, I want to unlearn like I mean, I could give personal examples from my own family. Like my parents never thought about, like my parents growing up, and I know that there were immigrants to this country and I came here as a young child, but they never thought about like my college education in the sense of like, how are we going to afford it? Like it just never, like I remember applying to like Syracuse University and Northeastern. And then I went to like one of those, you know, convention halls where they do like what is it called? You know what I'm talking about? Like where they talk to the parents. And my mom finds out that's like $30,000 a year. And I look over at her face. I'll never forget. I was 17 years old and my mom looked like a ghost because she never thought
more than
about
doubled since then.
I know, but and you know, my parents are like lower middle class, you know, immigrants into this country, paycheck to paycheck growing up. Right. And it's like, they had never thought about that part. It just never, it was just, you know, I think when you're struggling, you're not thinking about certain things, right? It's just not on their top priority. And I remember thinking like, oh shit, like I was not aware. And now I'm a senior, like, well, what school am I going to go to? Cause I'm not getting a loan for like, you know, it's just a lot of things. And I ended up getting like a scholarship to a school in Europe and then having to convince my dad, like, hey, I'm leaving the continent. And my dad being like, why can't you go to Syracuse? And I'm like, it's 30,000 a year. Like, and that's like, I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you word for word, that's a conversation I've had with my husband to the point where it's like, now I'm like, you should see, like, I have a college account for my kids. We talk about like their schooling every week. And it's like, what is the next 20 years of savings going to look like? What kind of house can we afford to buy right now? So we still have enough money to put on like in their savings. And, you know, George saying like, well, they need to get an academic scholarship. You know, there's a lot of things happening. And that is a conversation we had like 6 months into our relationship.
Yeah.
That's what vulnerability is, right?
I really like how you both phrased as looking into the past and talking about your past as like a format to talking to a new-ish, but not that new partner about the future. Because in a past podcast, I've heard you say before, like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? And to me, that just sounded like such a formulaic question that I didn't know how to throw out there in just conversation. But I really like the much more easy way of incorporating it that way. So thank you. I really
next time you have to go through trauma or like you're going on a parental rant, just flip it and be like, next time everyone rants about their friends, their families, especially childhood friends and family. Okay. So next time you're on a rant, pivot and be like, here's what I want in my future. What would you do in your future? Is there something in the past? Does this resonate with you in your past? How would you do it in the future? And these conversations at some point, like you're having your stance, they're having their stance. At some point, if you keep having these competitions, they start to integrate.
And I feel like that can evolve to more and more topics as that comes up. Like when I'm delving into childhood and then talking about children, or delving into complaining about my mom and then being a mother, or different conversations like that can evolve over time, I feel like.
I mean, what you're describing now is emotional resilience, because that's what that is. And if you don't know what that means, I need you to Google it. There's definitely lots of literature out there, but emotional resilience is about being more self-aware and having a sense of control over like, okay, here's what I'm understanding. Here's what makes me me. And here's who I want to be. And here are the steps I'm going to do to be that person.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I just want to say your podcast is incredible. And also the tip about someone seeming boring initially, actually making them perfectly compatible, is something that I told my best friend about 13 months ago. And after listening to your podcast, she's getting engaged within the next few weeks. And she almost didn't go on a 4th date. She almost stopped after the 3rd date. So
that is amazing. Mm-hmm. That is amazing. I love that. I love that. What a way to end this episode. That just made me so happy. Well, shout out to you and all of your friends. And I hope the best. I hope for the best. Ilana, how do you feel about your first hotline? You know, I'm going to have you back on, but how do you feel about your first hotline?
I mean, it was everything and more. I'm still stuck on the dating things from the beginning. And just love the questions that you all showed up with. I think they're very relatable. I think a lot of us, and I'm sure a lot of people listening in, felt have felt some aspect of what you guys are going through. And so Absolutely. Just know like you're not alone and there is a way forward. And I think, you know, for everyone who's showing up and listening, it's like, you're already halfway there by doing the work and expanding your mind and being open to learning. So I think you guys are all doing great.
I love that. Ilana, thank you so much for joining me on the Ask a Matchmaker podcast. Where can people find you online?
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a blast. You can find Seeing Other People wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow on Instagram at Seeing Other People or on TikTok at Ilana Dunn.
Yeah. And I'm going to include Ilana Dunn's and Seeing Other People's links to their profiles in the show notes. So if you want to go there, follow her, check out her podcast. It's like she said, and it's wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, it's right there too.
Right there.
And again, thank you for coming to the Ask a Matchmaker podcast. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to the Ask a Matchmaker podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, why don't you head over and just give a 5-star review?
Do it.
Do it. Tell a friend. Tell 5 friends.
Tell your coworkers. Tell your dog walker.
That previous caller forwarded my podcast and her friend got engaged after 14 months. That could be you and your friends, apparently.
Could be you.
So let's make it happen. And of course, be lovable, but more importantly, be likable. See you next week. Wow.